for joining me, Mark. It's great to have you on my show or on my YouTube channel, whatever you want to call it these days. So thank you for coming along and sharing your career story with us. So Mark, for anybody who doesn't know, this is Mark Dennison, BBC Radio Nottingham DJ, and I've been a loose lady on his show many a time. But let me put you over to Mark to introduce yourself, Mark, and tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then we'll sort of kind of rewind and sort of talk about your career to present date.
Okay. Nice to be your guest instead of you being mine. So, yeah, a bit nervous about this. I present at the moment it's a bit strange because this is, lockdown time. So we're all doing slightly different shifts, but I'm now doing Monday to Thursday, 10 till 2. So all of the programs have changed around a little bit. I am still coming into the studios, so still doing that. So it's a longer show, but I'm doing 4 days rather than 5. And it's sort of mid-morning, lunchtime, and it's a mix of guests, music, interaction, trying to put a smile on people's faces at the moment, which is, these are still challenging times, as well as, information and whatever. So that's what we're doing, a bit of a mix.
I did wonder, because I know, obviously, that's when we used to come on, that all your loose ladies, I've met so many amazing people on your show, which are now connections of mine, which is great, because we always used to come on the Friday, didn't we? So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, in terms of guests, we can't have people in the studio, so they're all like this, virtual guests, if you like, on the phone, on FaceTime and Zoom and what have you. And we can still do it. We can still get some really interesting people, but you don't have that face-to-face interaction.
How do you find that, actually, out of interest? How is that for you? Because from coming into the studio perspective, it was always great. There was always a really good vibe when there was myself and another guest on it, and we'd have that sort of rapport, and we'd build that up instantly, having been warmed up by the sort of production crew beforehand about what we were going to talk about. So how is that working for you right now?
I think it's always, it can be more challenging if you can't see someone's facial expressions and reactions and what have you. Sometimes with FaceTime and Zoom, you've got a bit of a delay as well. So technically, that can be a bit of a challenge. But we still need to get people on. We still need to communicate. And I think it's not ideal. And we can't do things like Loose Ladies was a feature where, as you mentioned, Sarah, we get 2 ladies, as the name suggests, on, and we have a bit of a chat about stuff in the news and some serious stuff. And we used to do similar things on a Monday, and we started doing Why Wednesdays, which was great as well, midweek. But we've just had to park all of that for now. I mean, one day we'll get back to normal, I guess, but I can't see us getting guests in the studio again anytime particularly soon. But it's this new normal, and we've just got to keep doing our thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, isn't it? Change is the new constant, and that's what we've kind of got to hang everything on, is that every day is going to be different. I mean, obviously right now in the news, it's that Leicester's locked back down. So, again, it's adapt for them. It's adapting. It's us adapting, being on the cusp, of course, of Leicester with Nottinghamshire. So it is. It's just it's daily changes. But you've always done sort of outside broadcasts as well, haven't you? I mean, is that something that you have had to sort of put on hold as well?
Yeah. I mean, I love doing that. They're one of my favourite things to do. And last summer, we were out. In fact, the last few summers, we've made a bit of a thing of going out every Friday and going to a different location and choosing some different places. And I think it's really important, especially for local radio, to get out there and to be seen, to be out there and meet the people you're talking to. We just can't do it, social distancing and all. I mean, you can go out. You've probably seen on the news, one thing that has really kind of come to the fore is boom microphones. So, the 2 meter long mics. You see these on the news where people are kind of shoving a boom mic up. Talk.
It looks like a small cat on a stick, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. It's not, by the way. Before. But in terms of radio, it wouldn't really work doing it. I guess you could, but it just wouldn't be the same. So
yeah,
again,
it's a shame, because I mean, obviously I've joined you on the outside broadcast. I think we've been over. We've been at the campsite that was over at was it Stapleford?
Yeah.
And Beeston Town Centre, and there's some other places I can't remember where. I can't remember now. I've been on quite a lot of your programmes over the years.
You've done your own blooming tour. Look at you. You have your own T-shirt.
Yes, I was here.
Yeah.
But it's great. I love it. I love the vibe of the show, and you know, you come away really sort of uplifted, and it's just great. It's a joy to be a part of, and so thank you for having me on as a guest so many times. But what I'm kind of keen to know about is, where did it all start? Because you weren't from Nottingham originally, were you? I think you were born in Manchester and ended up coming this way to study, didn't you? And
oh, you've done your homework.
Oh yeah. I know what you've studied, but I'll let you tell us all.
Well, I was born in Manchester. My mum is from Manchester. My dad's from the Lake District, but he moved to Manchester with work, and it's quite a cute story. So he was lodging next door to my grand's house. So my mum and dad literally met over the garden fence, and that was that. And then we moved from Manchester when I was only about 3 or 4. We moved to the northeast, and I went to school there. And then I never really, it's not like I never kind of bonded with the place, but I always had that kind of lust to travel and go and see the world. So I had a year out, and I went to work in France for a year, and then went to uni in Nottingham, what is Nottingham Trent. But again, because I still wanted to travel, part of my degree was French. So I had a year of teaching English out in France. And so all the time I was kind of very interested in the radio. Used to listen to it a lot. Used to watch Top of the Pops and stuff like that and think, oh, what are they doing? And used to kind of study it by listening to it. And then got into hospital radio while I was at college. Continued that when I came to Nottingham. And then when I was doing hospital radio, people used to talk about making demo tapes and stuff like that. And I was so naive at the time, like 19 years old, whatever. And someone explained to me, it was like, you make up a tape and then send it to an actual radio station. And if you're really lucky, you might get a job. And I thought, give it a go and see. But it was never my plan, really, for it to be an actual career. But very fortunately, I got some summer work back up in the northeast. So I joined a station there in the summer, and I was toing and froing while I was at uni. Graduated, and I had the choice of, again, luckily, of going back up north or staying in Nottingham. I ended up going back up north, but then moved to Yorkshire. And I was in Hull for a couple of years, and then I came to Nottingham in '96, and I was at Trent FM for 13 years. Left there in 2010 and joined the BBC, so I've been here 10 years.
And it was earlier this year. You celebrated 10 years, wasn't it? It was just earlier. Was it a couple of months ago? Yeah, whole decade at the BBC. So I'm still waiting. They haven't brought me anything yet. I'm waiting for the post. Whatever it is you get, but I've done 10 years, which has flown by, to be fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking back to when I think I first came on the show, and I think that was probably I think it might have been 2013. So I think that might have been 7 years ago. So it's wow. I know, I've not aged.
Oh, sorry, I was meant to say, you haven't aged.
But looking back though, and reflection, and that opportunity that you had at the radio station, the hospital radio, what prompted you to go and do that? Was that all that sort of listening, as you were saying, to the radio during your student days, and you just thought, oh, I'd like to have a go at that? Or how did that kind of come about? Because I've been talking about voluntary work just recently, and it is, it's great to do something and give back, but equally so that gives you and creates opportunities for future careers and opportunities to sort of try something and then you could almost find out what's not what I like, but in your case it was something that you'd not necessarily thought about career wise, but then it propelled you in that direction. But what happened really, how did that sort of opportunity, if you like, come about in the first instance?
Well, I always remember when I was doing a lot of listening to the radio and finding out, reading up on how people get into radio. Back then, there was no student radio as such. There was no kind of community radio. It was a lot more kind of restricted, I suppose, in some ways. And hospital radio was probably the route in to do it. And I thought, well, I'll apply. I knew from reading and from talking to other people that it is voluntary, and you've got to not just expect us to turn up and then you're on the air. You've got to put in the hours. So you go and visit people on the wards and you get requests. And I used to love doing that. I mean, even as a student, when I came back to Nottingham, I was sort of doing ward round stuff like that. It could be Queen's, it could be City, getting the bus between the two, walking occasionally. That's a trek between the two. And then, I can't remember how the first kind of on-air shift came about, but I remember distinctly when I was at Queen's, I was doing Sunday mornings, and there was a strange setup where I started at 9, do about 45 minutes, and then there was a church service halfway through. So I couldn't see the vicar. He would be in his chapel somewhere at Queen's. And so you would just kind of fade the vicar up at 10:15. Hope he was there. He would do his service for 45 minutes. I would go and have a breakfast in the canteen. Then I'd come back. I mean, it was quite an odd system in some ways, but it was a great kind of baptism of fire in lots of ways. I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of, I was still trying to find my own style. But I think the great thing is with hospital radio is that you can do that, but you've got to remember who your audience is. And that's something it's still drilled into us now. You've got to remember who you're talking to. I remember hearing about people that would be doing hospital radio, but using it as a platform to then get a job in radio. And you can't do that. What's the point in going on hospital radio and talking about travel news or the weather? Or people in hospital don't care, so you've got to make it about them. And if you manage to get a job in radio, then great, good for you. But I think there's a real grounding, there's an importance in knowing who your audience is.
Yeah, that's great. And that's something that's really important, I think, in all walks of life. When you are in business, it is understanding that avatar, if you like, of your client, and who, and it's not about you, it's about them, and it's what they can benefit and how you can help them, which is what you're doing in doing that round. You're understanding their need, you're reading that sort of demographic, isn't it? And that you are, totally, aligned with where they're at. And there's no point doing a travel program for somebody that's in a hospital bed that's not likely to be able to get anywhere. So you've kind of got to have that understanding and build, and that's about that building of rapport and understanding, so they're going to want to listen. And which is, as you say, it's been drilled into you, and you've run by that, and that's what you do with the, at the BBC now. And I presume that because you were obviously in commercial radio before that, and in fact, I think looking at the dates, you must have been in Dale Winton's times as well, were you?
Well, our paths never crossed, but I think someone told me once that
you didn't just see his tan go past at all, then.
No, I think I noticed, wouldn't I? Because Dale was quite a character, and bless him, he actually, because we've got mutual friends, if you like, so I know that he was incredibly fond. Even later on in his career, he never forgot his roots, and he was, I think, up until I was at Trent, he was the longest serving mid-morning presenter there. And I think I stand corrected on this, but I might have sort of beaten him to that one. But no, we never actually, our paths never crossed. I was there when I was at Trent Uni, Nottingham Trent Uni, and I was doing Friday nights and Saturday nights. So as I remember, my mates would be out on the town, and then on a Saturday, actually, I would finish at 10. So I used to leg it from the studio on Castlegate and go and meet them at the Irish. And then it was terrible, actually. So then I would be binge drinking, trying to keep up with them. You know what it's like when you turn up and you're the only sober person. But I didn't care. Yeah, I didn't care. And even before that, when I was going up north, when I was going up to TFM in the northeast, my show fee wasn't even covering the train fare, really. to get up there and back.
Oh, wow.
But you do.
You're doing it because you love it. You've got a passion for it.
Exactly. You know, I was doing what I really wanted to do. But even then, when I was doing one show a week, whilst at uni, I didn't really think this is going to be your career. This is what's going to pay the bills in 20 years' time. And sure enough, it has, generally.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? So you kind of, you recognised it was something you were interested in, got into the hospital radio, recognised your target audience and what, you know, they needed from you, and you delivered that. Did your demo tape, which then gave you the work experience, and then sort of, you know, your career's evolved, and you stayed long-standing at Trent, and then on to Radio Nottingham 10 years ago. So what made you move? What made you make the move from Trent then to Radio Nottingham?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the time, commercial radio was going through a real kind of contraction, and stations were merging, radio companies were buying each other, and it was all quite odd. Looking back, I'd sort of decided that I was ready to leave. I'd been there sort of 10, 11 years, and I thought, this is getting a little bit. I was probably bored, to be frank. And it was a very kind of formulaic program I was doing. So commercial radio then, as a lot of the stations are now, you know, they're very kind of music driven, which means as a presenter, you kind of pop up very kind of briefly at various points in an hour. And I was doing a 5-hour show, I think, at Trent, and then it was networked. So I was on Nottingham, Derby, Leicester, a couple of stations down south. And for that reason, I kind of stayed on a little bit longer, because I thought, well, this is a bit different. But actually, I was still doing the same job. And as good as it is, and I'm certainly not knocking anything commercial radio does, I was still looking for something else. And so BBC approached me probably about a year and a half before I moved. And so we started talking, and they got me to do a couple of demos for them. And then at the same time, I started talking to another station, a commercial station up in the northeast. And I was in that really fortunate position of I could have chosen either. And actually, looking back, I do remember we'd gone away, the four of us, and I told the kids I couldn't decide which to do. I said, it's either going to be we move to the northeast, or I join the BBC and we stay in Nottingham. And I think between the four of us, we came to the conclusion that, you know, rather than uproot the whole family, let's give BBC a go and see what happens. And it was a big change for me. I'd gone from doing commercial radio and very, very music driven to coming here, and the emphasis being more on speech and a very different kind of presenting style and everything. And it took quite a long time to get used to. I had a honeymoon period, and then after a few months, I had a period when I thought, have I made the right choice here? But you know, it's been great, and I've learned a hell of a lot in a fairly short period of time, and it's been very good.
That's brilliant. And that's interesting you should say that, because, you know, you would think that one would be the same as the next, but of course it's not. And I've had that experience over the years in working in recruitment, you know, being with a firm, and then you go, you kind of like, you know it all, and you move, and you go, oh, this isn't the same now. What am I doing? Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. But then you find your rhythm, don't you? And that's obviously what you've done. And I'm very curious. What sort of popped up into my head is obviously you were describing how it was at commercial radio. You're kind of popping up between the music, and it's sort of music and adverts, and hello, I'm the DJ. But then you've got, in fact, I can still think cold steel windows are the best, 21155. It works.
Oh my life.
I know. That's terrible, isn't it?
You just proved the point.
Oh my God. But you know, you've moved to the BBC. So in terms of the programming, is that something that you then have input in or is there a production, do production sort of say this is how we are doing it, or are you very much part of the creation of the show? How does that actually work? I'm really kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's very different here, because Trent, I was a one man show, and to be honest, there wasn't that much to produce really, because we didn't talk that much. Whereas here, it's very different. So yeah, I mean, again, things are slightly different in lockdown. So at the moment, there's one producer, but normally there would be two. And yeah, I'm very much part of that. I like to be part of that. I don't like to just sort of turn up in the morning and just be given a program and off you go. I mean, even if I'd like to think, even if I was just kind of handed, I don't know, guests or content or whatever, as a presenter, you've still got to own it. You're still going to make it your own, put your own stamp on it. So I wouldn't present something in the same way that other colleagues might, for instance. And I think that's right, and I think that's healthy. So now I like to be part of that. And at the moment, we've got a good kind of routine, a good system going, where there's a mixture of music features and guests and what have you. And at the moment, the producer deals with the guests and setting them up and making sure we've got the right people to talk to at the right time. And I deal with the music features, and then we kind of get our heads together and we share ideas, and so it goes on.
Is it your choice in terms of the music that you play then, or is that a joint decision?
No, I mean, music is centrally programmed. Music's always, wherever you work in radio, music is probably the most contentious thing, and everyone whinges about it. Everyone's a music, it's like football, everyone's a music expert. So I know that we all have to kind of detach ourselves a little bit, because it's very subjective music as well. So there is testing of music, and then there's someone that will schedule it. But within that, here we do have a little bit of wriggle room. So you can react to stuff, and we can play local artists and things like that, and we can be reactive. So there's probably a bit more flexibility in the rules to what I used to have.
Yeah, that's nice then, isn't it? If you've got that, you should say that degree of wiggle room, and you can wiggle room, and you can sort of move it around a bit. But yeah, it's just curious, because sometimes you think, well, why can't you put this on, or why don't you put that on? And it's just, yeah, but it's great, because the show is very much like a magazine, isn't it? You've got lots of different sort of sections, and it creates that sort of interest, and you're sort of tapping into your sort of audience, but it's sort of kind of different points and different parts of your audience. Then you've got that interaction, because they obviously contact you via sort of the internet or however, because I mean, obviously when I've been in the studio before, you get the comments coming in, and I can see, although I can't see what you're reading, I can see that you've got the screen there, and you've got variety, and you've got your regulars, of course, so you've got rapport building with them. So it's great. So it's fab that you've ended up then with something that you've kind of had an idea of, but didn't know there was a career in it, but loved it so much that you, as you're saying, you were doing that travel that, or it wasn't paying you to do it, but you were passionate enough about it to deliver that, and then you've ended up making a career out of it. And I'm assuming that when you did your test to get into the BBC, it wasn't on the same sort of cassette tape as it was back then, which might have been a groundhog one.
No, they made me considering they came to me, that I had to jump through so many, that probably won't surprise people, because the BBC has a reputation, some of it is true. It's not exactly fast, and boy, oh boy, they made me jump through hoops. But I mean, looking back, that was probably right, because it was a big move for them as well. I don't think they'd actually gone out and poached anyone before. So, it was a big thing for them. It was a big thing for me, and we had to make sure it was right for all of us. And, over time, as I say, there have been times where I thought, and there've probably been times with them, where they've wondered. And I remember at one point they were trying to turn me into a bit of a paxman, and they said, hey, when you get political interview, be hard. And I kept saying, but that's not me. So we had to sort of compromise, and I would go away on a course, and I would be given these tips on political interviewing, and then adapt it to my own skill set. And I think now we've probably reached a happy, tempting fate, they'll probably sack me next week, but I think by and large, I've had to adapt my style, my game, and they've had to accept as well that I'm going to put my personality on it like anyone else.
Well, I think you have to. It's about being your authentic, true self, isn't it? And if you've got that platform to be able to do that, that's brilliant. And I think that's really key for anybody in any career is you know, it's about being true to yourself and doing what you enjoy doing, what makes your heart sing, what you're passionate about, and if you can connect all that up. And you know, through my coaching, that's what I'm really sort of passionate about. And actually, even through my time in all my years in recruitment, you know, when I'm interviewing people, I've always kind of tried to listen to what it is they're looking for, making sure the right person goes into the right job, and likewise with the client, you know, the candidate, making sure not just putting a bum on a seat, because it's really important. It's your life basically, and if you can be in alignment with it, you live a happier and healthier life, you know, and you can kind of get on and enjoy things. And obviously you're outside of enjoying that, cooking, cycling, Nottingham Forest.
Love it. All of that, all of the above and more. Yes.
Many a mention of you on your bike in the Nottingham traffic during ladies' talk.
I know there's a contentious issue. Some people just don't like cyclists, and I'm afraid sometimes I just like to wind those people up.
Really?
But yeah. No, you're right, and I know I'm very lucky. You know, I do a job that I love doing, but and you're right as well that ultimately with work, you know, you do spend more time at work.
I've lost your pic. Oh, you're back.
Oh,
it's okay. You're back. That's it. It's live.
I've got my low battery life. I'm back. Yeah, I don't do this. I just do radio. So yeah, I am very lucky to do what I do, and you know, you spend more time at work than you do with your family often, don't you? So you know, if you can make it something you love doing, then good for you.
Absolutely. And I say that's really important. That's what I try and encourage everybody to do. So thank you very much for sharing your story with me, Mark. And people can join you on the radio between 10 and 2, Monday to Thursday at the moment on BBC Radio Nottingham. I don't know all the bits and pieces in terms of what wave it is, but maybe you'd like to share that.
It's on the radio.
It's on the radio.
There we are.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. It's been really nice turning the tables and being able to have a longer chat, because normally we just have little segments, don't we, when we're on sort of when we're live on air. And, you know, obviously trying to keep me to be quiet is a big task in itself.
Wow. No comment.
Oh, thank you ever so much, Mark. I really, really appreciate that.